So before I properly start this video, I just want to make one thing clear. No, Thomas and the Magic Railroad is not canon. No bending of rules, or if you ignore this BS, it ain't canon. However, what if it was canon? How would it affect the lore? Would it have to be a it was all a dream scenario? And most importantly, are there any references to it in the TV series following or preceding the events of the movie? Let's have a little look. First off, let's start with the obvious. The one thing that Magic Railroad did truly right was its new characters. No, not those green screened in grown ass men.
What's the matter?
I think I'm allergic to grass.
Keep yapping, man.
I'm obviously talking about Diesel 10 and Lady. Diesel 10 and Lady are the only characters from Magic Railroad to ever appear in the series again, both making their return in Calling All Engines. I say return in quotation marks because while yes, the advertisements for this movie marketed Diesel 10 and Lady as returning characters, so much so that it was actually stated on the original UK DVD cover, but if you've actually seen the movie, you'll know that they are completely different characters. Let's talk about Lady first. Lady is a character that low-key dug themselves into a hole before they could even get started. Because if for whatever reason Magic Railroad was a success, and Lady became a regular character, she would have to have Burnett with her, right? Or at least somebody from the real world, because how else would she get to Sodor? It's stuff like this that makes me wonder if Magic Railroad was ever intended to be canon in the first place, but we'll get into that later. In Calling All Engines, they give us really mixed signals as to what Lady actually is. They state that Lady is a very special steam engine, and play almost angelic music when she appears, so not only is she apparently special as hell, she's also a character that we've only seen in Thomas's dreams. So she's not real, right? Well, this is where it gets confusing, because despite all points leading to her being a mere figment of Thomas's imagination, there's a line by the narrator that almost completely shoots that theory down.
She worked high up in the mountains.
This to me could mean either two things. Either one, the narrator is saying that in Thomas's dream she works at the mountains, or she actually exists on Sodor but we've just never seen her because she's so high up in the mountains. I personally prefer to think the first one because of a theory I have which I'll get to later, but generally speaking I think this was just a one-off. Now we get on to Diesel 10, and this one's pretty straightforward. This Diesel 10 straight up is not the one from Magic Railroad. Not only would Diesel 10 from Magic Railroad not help the railway in any way, shape or form, but there is no way in hell that Thomas, of all people, would be able to reason with him. Not even Splatter and Dodge could do that, so I refuse to believe that this guy, the guy who threatened to throw a human being off a bridge after kidnapping them against their will, and chased down two steam engines with the intention of destroying them both, would help out the reconstruction of an airport. Now let's get on to the thing that I'm sure a lot of you are waiting for. Let's go through all of the Magic Railroad references and nods in the TV series. So let's start off with some terminology. Diesel 10's iconic catchphrases, if that's what you want to call them, in Magic Railroad were Twinkle Toes and Puffball. Now believe it or not, Puffball was actually used before Magic Railroad, by none other than George the Steamroller in Season 5.
"You're a useless blue puffball," he shouted.
Now this for me cannot be a coincidence. It's very possible that Magic Railroad had the script being written during Season 5, and so they slipped in this little terminology as a fun novelty, but there is a very small chance that this was a coincidence. Now Puffball was actually never used again after Magic Railroad. Twinkle Toes, however, was used in the Season 17 episode, The Missing Christmas Decorations. While it wasn't directed at anybody who appeared in Magic Railroad, it was said by Diesel 10 himself, albeit set to Sydney of all characters.
I'm hanging over the tree.
Yeah, Twinkle Toes!
These aren't an indication of Magic Railroad being canon or anything, it's just a simple nod to fans. And of course there is the main one being Little Engines Can Do Big Things, which was said by Thomas in the series finale, The Royal Engine. This episode was filled to the brim, with loads of references to things from the TV series, movies, and even the Railway series, so this has absolutely no connection to Magic Railroad within the canon. Let's get on to things that are a bit more concrete. This first one is definitely the lesser of the three, but it's been pointed out many times that the viaduct prop from Magic Railroad was reused for the Pack series. Now obviously this has absolutely zero connections with Magic Railroad within the canon, as this is a road bridge in the Pack series, not a railway bridge. But it was definitely nice to see a Magic Railroad prop being used in the main series. The next occurrence is a bit of an odd one because while it definitely could be interpreted as a nod to Magic Railroad being canon, or at least the events of the movie happening in some way or another. It could also very well be a nod to Calling All Engines and the long-lasting rivalry that Diesel 10 and Thomas always had. Hence the initial animosity towards Thomas in the scene where he confronts him in Calling All Engines. To set the stage, this scene takes place near the main conflict part of Day of the Diesels. Thomas comes to confront Diesel 10 and the rest of the Diesels at the Diesel Works for stealing Kevin. And when Diesel 10 finally sees Thomas, after continuously asking Percy throughout the entire movie when Thomas would be at the Diesel Works, he says this line here.
Welcome, Thomas. We've been waiting for you for so long.
Now, like I said, this could very well just be the writer's way of alluding to a past between these two that we just never saw, but the fact that Diesel prolonged his in so long definitely gives me the vibe of we've been through some shit in the past and I really don't like you because of it. And the last one we're going to look at could once again be looked at two ways. So in season 5, we see that Tidmouth Sheds is in a pretty bad state. And in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, we very visibly see that Tidmouth Sheds is under construction. And after the construction, it looks like this in season 6. You could obviously brush this off as the sheds being fixed in between the events of season 5 and 6, but at the same time it would make sense to say that they were fixed during the events of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, despite there being absolutely no people around during the whole movie. It's things like that that make me completely invalidate Magic Railroad in my head, because there is so much different about Sodor in Magic Railroad when you compare it to season 1 through 5. Like, where are the other engines? Where is Donald? Where is Douglas? Where is Duck? Where is Oliver? And where are all the people? It just simply makes no sense to me. And that leads us into the main point of this video, and my theory as to the status of Thomas and the Magic Railroad within the canon of the TV series. I'm very aware that a lot of people won't like this theory because it's ultimately very cliche and something that has been done in a lot of stories before, but I think the only way to incorporate Magic Railroad into the canon of the TV series is by saying that it was simply a dream cooked up by Thomas. Think about it for a minute, it actually makes a lot of sense. In actual dreams, there are very rarely any fine detail in them. There's never any background people, it's almost always a certain person. And very rarely do you have dreams about people who you've only met a few times in the past. Dreams are almost always about people who you see on a regular basis. Your mother, your father, your sister, or your friends. And what is the one thing about Magic Railroad that most people complain about? The Sodor cast is very limited. So much so that the only Sodor characters that have roles are the main 7 engines. Now of course Edward is the exception here, but you could very easily say that Thomas just simply didn't have Edward in his dream. Other aspects that support this theory of it being a dream is of course the whole magic element. Now somebody who replied to my tweet about this on Twitter actually made a very good point. As in the Thomas canon, Santa Claus is actually real. And that of course is some kind of magic if it was to be real. And while I do somewhat agree with that sentiment, I feel like it can be overlooked because Santa is a concept that only kids believe in, and Thomas is a kids franchise, and so by them saying outright that Santa isn't real or anything like that would utterly destroy their child audience. Back to the magic element. There is no real ties to Magic Railroad within the Thomas franchise before this movie or after it. The magic buffers are never mentioned again, which you would think would be something they would mention very frequently, but nope, not a single mention. Something else I wanted to mention is also the fact that the only other time Thomas sees Lady within the canon of the show is in his dream. Another theory that I have which sort of makes sense but also doesn't, and that was spawned by this reply to my tweet by the Thomas theorist, shout out to you, was that Thomas and the Magic Railroad within the canon of the TV series was a movie based on the books. You following me here? We know that the books are canon to the TV series. We see this in Thomas and the Toy Workshop. And so with Thomas being a global phenomenon, it would make sense to, make a movie about him, right? This is ultimately a very big stretch because it's sort of meta, a bit too meta, I understand that. But going off of this screenshot here, which I believe is from Halloween maybe, or Flower Power, I'm not too sure, we see that children have toys of the characters, but also posters of them. And this photo of Thomas was used for Magic Railroad's promotion. So could Magic Railroad be a movie within the universe of Thomas? Now, like I said before, it is a very big stretch because both Diesel 10 and Lady do appear in the model series after this point, with Diesel 10 being a confirmed real thing. But it could be argued that Diesel 10 in the Magic Railroad movie was based on a real engine in real life? Maybe? And other than those two theories, I think treating it as a separate timeline is for the best. I would personally consider it to be the Shining Time Station canon. It was stated in Shining Time Station that Mr. Conductor worked on Sodor, and it's safe to assume that the role of Mr. Conductor would have been passed on over time, hence why Mr. Conductor isn't played by George Carlin. So if you really want to go there, then yes, these are two separate timelines. Or technically, if you want to count the CGI series and All Engines Go, then 4 separate timelines. And before you start complaining, I don't care what anyone says, the CGI series is a separate canon. The CGI series takes aspects from the model series, yes, but if The Adventure Begins told us anything, it's that the events of Thomas arriving on Sodor happened in a much different way than they did in Season 1 of the model series. Not to mention the fact that The Adventure Begins gets referenced many times in the series. Maybe I'll do that one in the future. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.